You didn't work this hard, earn this title, and build this much experience just to feel bored. Welcome to The Boardroom, the podcast for senior leaders who are accomplished, capable, and quietly craving more. I'm Mark, your Chief Career Officer. And every week, we unpack real stories from leaders who have made bold moves. Plus, I'll give you practical strategies to help you take ownership of the next chapter in your career. If you're done drifting and you're ready to move forward with clarity and intention, you are in the right room. Hello, everybody. I am really excited today because I'm joined by Megan Wintersteen, someone who I have really grown to respect in the last year. She's a senior marketing executive. Her leadership extends to every corner of the organizations where she's served across both B2B and consumer brands. She's currently the VP of Corporate and Digital Marketing at Rampack, and previously she was the VP of Marketing at both Adentro and at Bolero. She might say, though, that her most important role is cat mom. But no matter where she's working, Megan is a steady and strategic force who is known for shaping brand direction, building modern marketing and digital capabilities, and partnering closely with executive teams to drive corporate growth. And I have a strong feeling you are going to love hearing her perspective. So, Megan, thank you for being here with us in the boardroom.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Mark.
So I want to ask this because I read a little bit of your bio, right? We know like a little bit about where you've been, but I find that it's always really interesting to hear from people the actual story of their careers. We oftentimes get that like bio, the LinkedIn version, and there's so much more to it than that. All the decisions we make, the opportunities that come out of left field, all of that. Talk to me about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, man. It takes us really far back without aging myself. But I was obsessed with journalism at a very young age. So all through high school, I thought I wanted to go be a journalist. And then I saw the movie What Women Want with Mel Gibson and Helen Hunt. And I was like, no, I think I need to check out advertising. I was very attracted to the lifestyle. I really loved her apartment in that movie. And I knew that I was like very interested in understanding more about like what is advertising. It seems really creative. Like what could that look like for me? The undergrad program I chose was a journalism program. And while I was there, I tried to get into the one advertising course that my school offered, couldn't get in. And so I graduated and was like, well, I'm not ready to go to work yet. Like, I think I want to go get my master's right away. I'm going to apply to NYU for journalism. And I'm going to apply to the University of Texas at Austin for advertising. And like, we'll just kind of figure out where this goes. And I got waitlisted.
Feels like a gamble.
It was a gamble. Yeah, I wanted to go live somewhere that I had no reason to live. Like it's always been very important to me to travel and to live in a bunch of places before settling down. So I was like, oh yeah, Texas seems cool. Apparently they have a good advertising program. I could go learn about it there. And I got waitlisted at NYU and I got in at Texas. So we went. And when I got there, they had different kind of tracks within their advertising master's program. One was like a creative track that I did not get accepted into. And I was like, oh, okay, like no big deal. Like this will just round me out. Like this will round out my marketing and communications portfolio. It's fine. And then my last semester, I discovered strategic planning and what that was. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is what I meant to do. So it was all kind of very serendipitous, you know, a little bit of risk taking, a little bit of luck, but a little bit of following my intuition. Loved.
Wait, so
yeah, go ahead.
you like this area, but this is really interesting because I feel like there are certain people, and I was never one of these people, so I'll be interested to know if this is you. I was never the person who was like, I'm going to school and this will be the trajectory of my career. Did you have any idea way back then that you would end up here today? Like, was this in the stars for you?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to do marketing.
It's amazing. Okay, because so many people don't use their degree.
And I don't remember saying that, but I apparently was telling people in high school that like, I'm going into marketing and I'm going into advertising. And that was a thing without knowing anything about it. Really. I think it was purely intuition and based off of how the field is represented in media, I guess. So
I love that. Okay, very cool. So then you started this master's program. Did you then immediately jump into working in the industry after that?
So I graduated in the recession. Like December 2008 was graduation. January '09, everything dropped. I lasted as long as I could in Texas, which was another 6 months on savings, and then gave up and moved back to New Jersey. When I got back to Jersey, I worked at a pizza place part time, and I got a job, like a part time contract job at a pharmaceutical marketing agency. Trying to stay relevant. I was picking up like freelance projects for my friends who own local businesses. Like I promoted like a hot dog eating contest at Stewart's. But I was just trying to like, how do I keep my resume relevant? Because no one's hiring like entry level right out of school people right now. And it took me, I was home for 8 or 9 months doing that. And then I got 2 job offers at the same time. One was for an agency out of Princeton, New Jersey, and I would have been like an account manager, which client services really wasn't my vibe, but it was a very reputable firm. Or I could move to Blacksburg, Virginia, and take a job at a shop who no one had ever heard of, but it was an account planning job. It was strategic planning. And so I took that job, even though I did not want to move to Virginia at the time. But again, you know, trying to live a bunch of places. So we took the job, we went, and it was honestly, it was probably one of the best decisions I ever made. It was hard too, because I was giving up a relationship to take that job. So there were things I was leaving here. But literally my 3rd week on the job, I flew out to Washington State and pitched HTC, which I don't know if you remember, but like they used to make mobile phones. So yeah, I went out and pitched HTC. And so I was employee 32 there, and they had all national accounts. They had like a ton of business with Verizon. I remember we were pitching Mizuno at the time, and the amount of exposure I got as employee number 32 was far and away beyond the responsibility I should have had at that age and ownership I should have had at that age and that level of experience. Honestly, it was one of the most educational experiences of my entire career, and I met so many good people down there. Just loved it.
Interesting too, this idea that you pursued the thing you felt naturally good at. You took these strategic planning classes. You said, there's a spark here. I'm going to chase that spark. At the to the cost of a relationship too is so intense. I mean, how hard were those decisions back then?
Yeah, they were. It was like one of those things where like you know what you got to do, but you don't want to do what you know you got to do. It's one of those. It felt a lot like that.
Well, I mean, it took you to great places though. So talk about the rest of the trajectory after that. Like, how did you get from associate level, basically, right? That individual contributor type position up to VP? Because while this is hilarious, I think about this all the time. I'm like, 2009 was like a couple of years ago. I'm like, oh wait, that was not a couple of years ago. Okay, never mind. But like in I would say a short amount of time, you really grew this career, stepped into leadership. How did you do that?
Yeah, I think it was partially that foundational experience that I had at Modia, which was the agency in Blacksburg. I was doing like UX and product strategy before that was even what people were calling it. I was doing social media strategy. I was doing media planning. We were literally designing games on Facebook. I don't know if you remember that era, but it was a
You.
thing. And we made this awesome Super Bowl game for Chiquita Avocados, which was like one of my biggest accounts. But yeah, like it was that range of experience that I got at that agency that really allowed me, well, one, that opened up a whole lot more opportunity, right? Like I could take a bunch of different types of strategy jobs, and I think product strategy at that time was very rare and typically reserved for less entry level people, more for like mid and upper level people. I always knew I wanted to get back to the city. The New York City ad agency scene did not want someone from Western Virginia. It was really hard to make that leap. I was fortunate enough to work with a brilliant recruiter who was like, you got to look the part, you got to talk the part, like you have to show them that you're part of this scene. She ended up getting me like a 6-month contract position at Havas as a way to like prove what I could do, so to speak, in that world. And then I ended up securing a full-time position at iCrossing as a social strategist, but I felt way too boxed in. It was too narrow of a scope coming from where I was coming from. Lucky for me, working at Huge was like my end-all be-all dream job. And my boss from Havas actually knew the head of strategy at Huge at the time. She got me a conversation, which led to an interview. Even though I only worked at iCrossing for 2 months, that was a great organization, but Huge was the dream job. Like I was never gonna like give that up for anything. So made it to Huge and started there as a lead planner. So I really kind of accelerated myself by taking that senior digital strategist position at Havas, and then jumped to lead planner. And then the next step from there was director of planning, which I did for about 3 years before jumping into in-house teams.
I hear a lot of folks, especially like in-house versus agency life, very hard to make that jump, make that transition. Was that again, because I'm hearing a lot of you going like, this person got me a conversation which led to this job. Was that transition also because of relationships?
No, that was a cold turkey transition, and it took like 2.5 years. Like I knew when I was leaving Huge that I wanted to go in-house, and I could not. I got interviews, but I could not close the interviews. I think that there's like this perception that being on the agency side, you won't be able to execute at the same level in-house because you're so much more ingrained in it. And I understand more of that perspective now, having been in-house. But I still think it's possible, especially if you get smart, intelligent, capable people. I never would have pictured my first in-house role being at a bowling company in my life. But I think I just had really amazing chemistry with my boss there at the time, and really the team. I think the timing in that case was so perfect for me to walk in. It was an organization that needed a lot of help maturing digitally, which was my entire backbone on the agency side. And so I don't think they hired me expecting that I was going to, I'd say, overhaul our entire digital footprint, but it worked out that way, and it was pretty amazing. I love the work that we were able to do there.
And sometimes things need overhauling.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's fantastic. So how did your leadership style grow? Because you accelerated really quickly into leadership roles, whether it was a people leader and then into like kind of people leaders, right? Like direct and indirect reports, and you're having teams underneath you. And I know from just knowing you that you love that execution side, right? Like you will jump in and get your hands dirty at a moment's notice. How do you grow in leadership, and then how do you separate yourself from like the strategy being here, the execution being down here, and you're working on both of those things?
Oof. Um,
Let me just throw the toughest questions at you today. How about
yeah,
that?
that's a great question. I think at least where the first thing that comes to mind is like I had some really bad bosses, and I'm not gonna say where that happened.
Of course, yes.
But I had a couple bosses who I just knew that's not who I wanted to be. And I wanted to bring things to the table differently because there were things that I wasn't getting out of their leadership and their mentorship. Not to say that there were things that they weren't good at. Like there were lots of things they were good at. But I used those as examples of like what I didn't want to be. And I also think like I was very privileged to actually work under some really like hyper talented women. And so them setting examples for me, I think really helped elevate and kind of guide my strategic thinking and really influence, like you come into these jobs with the hard skills and that can make you great to an extent. But until someone trusts your soft skills, you're not going to make that jump. And that's really what it's all about. Like, someone has to trust your judgment. They have to know that they could leave you in a room by yourself and that you could manage the conversation, or you could do, whatever it is, or that you can have influence. And I think where I grew the most in my ability to have influence was under really, really talented female leaders, because it's just a different experience leading as a female than it is male.
Has that been for you? Do you feel a really strong disconnect? I feel like every woman that I interview on this podcast is in a situation where she goes, I'm the only woman in the room every single time. Is that the case for you?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I mean, coming up on the ad agency side, particularly in digital, it was a boys' club. Coming up, even in in-house teams, like you see more women in marketing, but outside of that, it's fairly male, and it's fairly male the higher you get. And so understanding how to hold your own stylistically in those conversations, making sure that you come across as credible and authoritative, but also in a way where that information is able to be received. And like, let's be honest, that varies environment to environment.
Yes.
The way you come across it can be received one way somewhere and a different way somewhere else. So a lot of times it's like having the self-awareness to really read that dynamic and figure out, like, okay, if I want to get things done, like, what can I adjust, or what are the nuances that I can execute to have my message better received, to have more influences, to create relationships and build trust and build respect. I think all those things really matter the higher you go, especially when we're talking about strategy. Like, people, again, you need to have the credibility. People need to trust your judgment on those things.
Wow. Okay, so you've built yourself up. You get to that VP level. You're the woman in the room who's making a strong name for all women out there. Talk to me about at that VP, because I mean, we talked about it in your intro, right? Like VP of marketing at Adentro, VP of marketing at Bolero. Now you're with Rampack. Making those transitions is hard because similar to when you were in school and going, do I go to NYU, or do I move down to Austin? Do you similarly leave things up to chance when you go, okay, it's now time for me to leave and time for me to go somewhere else? Or is it opportunities knock and you consider, like, what does that decision making process look like?
It's a little bit of both, right? Like, there have been times where I knew it was time for. I generally get a sense when I know it's time for me to leave a role, and I just feel like, oh, this place doesn't align for me, or I don't feel like I'm learning anymore. If I'm not learning, I'm bored, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. So, like, and maybe call that ADD, call it whatever you want. Maybe it's from starting my career in an agency where you're getting put on a bunch of different accounts and you're always learning about a new industry and whatever that is, right? But if I'm not learning and I'm just going through the motions, that's hell for me. I need to be able to continue to learn. So there's been times where I was like, okay, I know I'm ready to go. I'm going to start looking around. And like, when I moved from Bolero to Adentro, I approached them and I had said, because they were actually one of our vendors at Bolero, and I loved them. They were like the people I wanted to be surrounded by. And so I reached out to the CEO and I kind of said, hey, if you're ever looking for marketing leadership, I know we're not supposed to do this because, like, I'm not trying to burn the bridge with Bolero, but I really love your team. I love your product. Like, and I was a user of your product. So who better to market your product to other marketers? It was a marketing technology, essentially. So in that case, I mean, I would say that was very much like by design, right? Like, I was opening those doors and trying to make that happen. But in other cases, I think there's been there has been a little bit left up to chance, in the sense that, like, call it, woo woo, whatever. But I very much trust in the universe to help me land wherever it is I'm going to land. And there's always something to take away from every experience, even if it's not the outcome that you wanted, right? And so I feel like the past few years I've maybe been floating a little bit and letting my career happen to me, which is why we started working together, because I love this idea of like, take control back and like you happen to your career, like not just your career happening to you. I think that's brilliant. And so, yeah, so I think there's a time and a place for everything, but I'm trying to be more intentional and proactive about like really realizing the place for me. Like, what exactly does that environment look like?
Well, and that moment that you take the ownership and you stop letting things happen to you, that's where you can still trust the universe, right? Like you can still do all of those things and look at opportunities, sometimes create opportunities, right? Now, okay, I want to tell the story about you that I think that you might know where I'm going with this. Can I tell this story?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so everybody listening, imagine Megan and I, it was so interesting. We were talking about networking. Before I tell this story, how do you feel about networking now?
I like the way I'm doing it now.
You like the way you're doing? Okay, I love that answer. So Megan and I were talking about networking and talking about how transactional it can feel. Because Megan, and I actually don't think you're wrong about this, Megan. I think that lots of people look at it this way. It's very transactional. It's very, what can you do for me? And people see it that way a lot. But even in your story, I've heard you say it now. I've heard you say it before when we've met that you said, "Oh, well, I knew this person who got me this conversation. I was talking to a recruiter who recommended me for something." And it's all about that networking, the relationship aspect. And ironically, for as good as you are at relationship and building rapport and building trust, the idea of networking was so abhorrent to you, didn't want to do it. So I had Megan start to reach out to folks who are in her network, who she might know. And the first one that you reached out to was your proof point that networking did not work. It was transactional because the person didn't respond to you. And so I said, "Well, what did you say? What was that message?" He said, "Well, I found this woman who I used to work with. She got a new job about a month ago. So I said, 'Congratulations on your new job. Do they have anything over there for me?'"
Well, I
And
didn't
I
phrase it
went,
just like that. Can we
"You
just?
were softer about it. You were
Thank
so
you.
soft." And you read that message to me, and I cupped my hands around my mouth and I said, "Boo."
Yeah.
Said, "How transactional." And it was that moment where you went, "Oh, that is the negative type of networking that doesn't get people where they want to go." And ever since, you've been doing such a good job about saying the networking, the relationship building isn't even for you. Will it have benefits for you? Sure. But if you say, "I'm going to trust the universe to land me where I should be," then having conversations where you are giving to other people is so important. And I remember talking to you in that moment where you realized that you are a woman who is in a leadership role and you have a lot to offer other people. It was so cool to watch that kind of click with you, and for because you were like, who cares? Like, what can I do for anybody else? So much you can do so much, and so your ability to impact the lives of other people has always been really impressive to me. And I'm excited to see that, like, this version of networking, the version of networking that is authentic and real and human, is the thing that you're embracing because it's not about like landing a new opportunity, right? Like that's not why we do it. Could it lead to that? Sure. But you walking in and just saying, "I'm a woman, I lead, I'm in marketing, and I'm interested in talking to other people who are in the same space or want to be in this space," is so hugely powerful. And so I'm taking this opportunity to say, I am so proud of you for that attitude and how far you've come, seeing yourself as a leader rather than a manager, and then gifting that to other people because folks who work for you and with you adore you. We've seen this over and over again. So well done.
Thank you.
Now let's hear your perspective on this. Like I told my version, I kind of want to hear your version.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. For anyone listening, like I think what really allowed me to embrace this idea of networking more is when you said you don't like, well, first of all, you were trying to like push me to reach out to strangers, which I was like, absolutely not, like absolutely not. But what has warmed me up to this idea more and more and more is the sense that I can just reach out to people that I enjoyed working with and that I really admired or respected. And then to me, that doesn't feel icky at all. That feels like, oh, I haven't talked to you in a while. I really thought highly of you, or I loved working with you. What are you doing right now? Like, just to, shoot the shit, pick your brain, whatever. And that has made this less of a chore. It's made it feel enjoyable, and it makes me feel connected in a way that, like, being in leadership, like, it's can be really valuable to kind of get out of your own organization and have those connections and make those connections. And so that's what really it flipped my thinking of this, so to speak, right? Like, and I've talked to a few people multiple times since then. There's people where we've been like, we should grab dinner, like we should do something, like at where it naturally evolves because there's a natural chemistry there. And so thank you, because I needed that push and to have that reframed. Because like I'm not the person who wants to go to a cocktail hour networking event. Put me in a workshop where we're going to like do a group project together or like a hackathon. I love it. But I do not want to go and small talk. That's like
Right.
that's not what feels right for me. So this has been a huge shift and a very important one, I think.
You took, and this is where I think that you did all of the right things too, is you took the ideas, best practices, concepts that I'm giving you, and you went, how can I apply this in a way that feels real and authentic to me? Right? And that's what is so important. That's where you succeed, is when you go, how can I take these ideas and feel like I'm doing it my way and still being effective with it? So well done. You're reminding me though that the number of people that you impact goes beyond your corporate career. I want to have you talk a little bit about the things outside of your official work capacities that you do in the community, and like all the engagement and involvement you do to make your community a better place too.
Sure, yeah. So I get a lot of self gratification, and it's super important to me to feel like I'm a participating member in my community, and then I'm leaving things better than I found it. Settled here in Jersey City Heights 5 years ago now, maybe even 6, and this is the first place I've ever felt like this is my neighborhood. I've rented in a couple places around Hudson County. I told you I've lived in Maryland, Virginia, Texas. I came from West Jersey, but I was like, this is where I want to be. And so how do I get involved? And so I actually signed up for like a student mentor event or something, where they were looking for professionals to come in and just talk. Like, it was like speed dating, but for students to learn about different careers. And I ended up connecting with one of the other career folks there, who was like the head of HR in Jersey City and was the president of our local farmers market. And I was like, I'm looking for ways to get involved. He's like, we're recruiting for the board. Come meet some people. Great. That was 6 years ago. I'm now the vice president of the Riverview Farmers Market Board. It's an amazing little corner of Jersey City Heights. We're so much more than a farmers market. We do community events monthly throughout the summer. And then while I was unemployed, I was laid off, I don't know, probably 4 years ago now. So while I was unemployed, I needed a pet project because I don't like to idle hands, right?
Can't sit still, can you?
No, I need stuff to do. And so typically in Jersey City is very, very big. And a lot of the holiday events are very concentrated downtown, where like it's all connected to the path and there's a lot of commuting traffic and it's just a bigger population. And so a close friend of mine who owns a small business here, Busy Bee Organics, was like, what if we started a holiday market? And I had all the experience with events from the Riverview Farmers Market, so we did. We started a holiday market here in Jersey City. It's a one-day pop-up that we do every December. It started with 60 vendors. We put it together in like a month and a half. Don't even ask how I did that.
Ooh.
Started with like 60 vendors. This year we had over 150 vendors. So it was our 4th year. It's a huge fundraiser for the market, which is a nonprofit. So that those funds are put to use back into the community. And I just love the sense of belonging and the sense of your neighbors like appreciating the work that you put into these things. I co-founded and run a women's small business group in the Heights. So it's all female business leaders that are based here in Jersey City Heights. It's called the Heights Entrepreneurial Women's Society, or HUES. And that's also been an amazing outlet for me. Like, these are projects where I feel like I can actually be creative and I can foster community and like bring women together. And it's been so valuable to see the strengths that each woman has. Like, it's not all the same. Like, you have, some female business owners that like never check their email, but they're like absolutely creative visionaries. And you're like, you are the least organized person I've ever met, but you have such brilliant ideas. Like, how does this doesn't compute to me as an organized person? But I'm like, you're brilliant. And then you have the people who are hyper organized. They're in the math. They're like running forecasts. They're like, they know everything to the dollar and the cents. And it's really helped me kind of contextualize my experience and like what I bring to the table, which it may not always be, it's not in a corporate sense, and it's certainly not always in a marketing sense. But I think it's more broadly like, how do I think about my role as a professional? How do I think about what I bring to the table? And how is that different from other people around me? I think it's really helped me kind of hone that story.
That's really cool. You're doing so many things. Uh, Do you, how do you balance that? Because I feel like there are so many people who go, well, I would love to invest in something like that, but my job is so demanding. I mean, are you just making time in the evenings? This is a lot of work.
It's evenings. It's evenings. It's weekends. It's mornings sometimes. But like, if that's where I'm sourcing the energy from, right? It
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
feel
passion.
like work in the same way. Um, and yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, like, it's a lot to juggle. It's certainly a lot to juggle, but I've been asking myself recently, like, do you need to take things off your plate? Like, what does that look like for you? Would that free up more time to do X, Y, Z? And I don't necessarily have the answer to that yet, because they're passion projects that I feel really strongly about, and that like, they bring a lot to my life. And so regardless of the extra time, it feels worth it.
I mean, that level of passion, that thing that when I ask you about it, you light up and you could go on and on about it, is so important to have. Because I've noticed a pattern with a lot of the senior level leaders that I work with. And usually they have kind of like one of three things or more. They've got some sort of like a curiosity. They're all about continuous learning. They don't want to feel bored, which appropriately is the name of this podcast, right? The boardroom. They really like that culture fit aspect, right? Like that, like fitting in the right culture almost matters to them more than what they actually do for a living, which I always thought was really interesting. But then also the third thing, having just something outside of work that's really a passion, and you have all three of those things, right? Like, usually I find senior leaders who have one or maybe two of those that keep them going and sustain them and give them energy and they're excited. You've got all three of those.
That's interesting. You'd never told me that.
It's fascinating to me because that to me is where you step out of the boardroom, right? And you can say, I have a life that is aligned at a high level. I'm staying curious. I'm a good fit where I am, and I have something that I'm passionate about. Because, like, I even had one leader one time who was talking about how desperately she hated the job that she had. And I was talking to her about all of these different things, like getting her into a job that she's aligned with. What does she want? We were looking at all sorts of different organizations. And then a thought occurred to me. And I said, I'm going to use a fake name for her. Let's call her Sue. I said, Sue, do you need to be passionate about work? 'Cause she was really, really passionate about political campaigns. She loved volunteering for city and state political campaigns where she lived in the Northeast. And she kept talking all the time. That was the thing that got her to light up. And at work, she's just like, I just kind of hate it. I just kind of hate it. I just kind of hate it. And so, yes, she needed a change because for her, she wasn't curious anymore. She wasn't interested. She wasn't having impact anymore and wanted a place where she felt like she could grow. But she was also trying to layer on top of that, I have to be able to grow. I need to be passionate about what I do. And I was like,
Interesting.
But do you because you have a passion, right? You love volunteering for your local political campaigns. And then she would, after campaigns were over, she would then volunteer for initiatives in the community that whatever politician who won was initiating. And so she would go and dive and really like dive first head into this. It reminds me a lot of you, a small business women's association, like the community market, all of these things. And like, it reminds me so much. So my question then for you is, do you do that thing where like, not that you don't have to be interested in what you do, but do you find that like the excitement, the passion comes with we'll call them extracurriculars, and then the the idea of like culture fit, leadership, and kind of that continuous growth you get professionally, like is that a good balance for you?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think when I started my career, what I was working on was really important. Like, I wanted the sexy client or the one that everyone knew about, right? And in some ways that stuff does matter because especially if you're going into advertising, you don't want to start working on regional brands. You have to work on national, like if you want to grow to have that national, right? So it's to some degree that matters, but also like I just wanted the name, like I wanted the cool client, the ones that are also going to be more creative. You can, selling like working on a wine client is like very different than Chiquita avocados, for example. But I think the older that I get, the more for me it's about culture fit. And I can, like, blessing and a curse, I can get excited about whatever industry you put in front of me. That's not hard. Bowling?
It's hard for most people.
For me, like at this point I can get excited whatever the industry is. Bowling, I personally don't like bowling, but I did for 3.5 years. I loved it. I loved bowling. Um, the right now I'm in sustainable packaging. Never in my life. You ever asked me what I wanted to do? I would not have said, "Oh, I want to market packaging automation and work in manufacturing and talk about the science of paper and how it's perfectly crumpled in the box and that's what protects your products." Not in a bajillion years. So at this stage in my life, like knowing that about myself, there's things that I won't work on. Like, let me be clear, there are like things that don't align with my values. But for the most part, I could probably get excited about anything if the team is right. Because as you climb the ranks, and I think this is especially true in VP plus positions, it's more about, am I aligned with the people I'm surrounded by? Do we respect each other? Is there integrity? Do we respect each other's expertise? Is there transparency? Where is their ego? And are we able to work past that, right, in a constructive way? And if that is vibing, if that's working, then the company will likely be working, and everything below that will kind of fall out of that camaraderie and those relationships. I think that's like, it's one of the trickier parts about what we talked about earlier, right? Kind of like leaving your career to chance. Because how do you vet that? Legitimately, like how do you vet that in an interview process? There's only so far you can go. Whereas if you know someone and you got introduced that way, or if you're walking into working with someone you've worked with before, you already have an advantage in understanding like, what does our chemistry look like? Be honest with me. What does the rest of the group's chemistry look like? And then it's deciding, okay, does this sound like something that I can work in, or does this sound like something that maybe I want to avoid?
The insider track on that, right? Because you're never going to get straight answers in interviews about culture. But walking in and knowing somebody and asking those real genuine questions like what's going on here,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're going to always get the real answer from those types of people, and then you get to decide if that opportunity that pops up after that is a good fit.
Yeah,
I'm glad that
exactly.
you've done that. That's really cool. All right, so let's think about the future a little bit. Like you've had some like huge working at huge was a dream position for you. What's your dream? Are there C-suite aspirations? Are there board aspirations? What do you think?
Oh, it's such a good question. I mean, isn't that why we're working together? I mean, like, yeah. I mean, after Huge, I was kind of like, what the hell do I do now? Like, literally, it was very much that, and that's why I chose to go in house because I didn't see the growth path on the agency side for me. I think at this point, I mean, I've operated in a C-suite level with a VP title. I loved the way that felt. I would like to get back there. I'd like to move back into the C-suite, but I'm also thinking about beyond that. Marketing, I think, is very unique in the way as a function. It's unique, right? Like marketing at company A is different than what marketing means at company B. Like it's really about what challenges you're solving and what the organization needs. And so it's less about title, but it's more about the level and impact that you can have within an organization, I think. Beyond that, I'm asking myself, like, what comes after C? Like, do you want to... I don't know that I've never really wanted to own my own company. So that's not I feel like I would never turn off. And it's really important to me to turn off.
Yes.
So I don't know that that's for me, but then, I'm surrounded by all these amazing small business owners here, and I'm like, oh, I love what you guys are doing. Like, could I do something like that? I feel like it would really have to strike me. I don't want to just go open a marketing agency or open an ad agency or something, right? Like that's not for me. But I've also been exploring could I get to CEO? You don't see a lot of marketing folks jump to that position. So what comes next is especially at this point in my career, is absolutely a persistent thought. But like I said, I think it's more about that team than it is about the title. And it's getting into a place that feels good and feels like I'm surrounded by the right people.
Again, I talked about some of those things that I see as common in leaders, and you just mentioned another one because we've actually kind of been talking about this a little bit the whole time that it's okay to have ambition. It's okay to even have an ego, right? You mentioned before everyone has the ego. How do we work through that in the room to get to a resolution? It's okay to have ego. It's okay to have ambition. You're balancing all of that with a humble attitude, with the right culture fit, with strategy and intentionality. And I think that's the way to do it, right? Like as you progress in your career, the last step, you couldn't have seen this step clearly. This step, you can't see the next step clearly. But when you're operating with this, I have ambition, which means there's naturally a little bit of ego, but that ego is in check, humble. I am acting in a strategic and intentional way. Then you're finding more opportunities and you're starting to clarify, even if it's a little bit at a time, what that future looks like. And that's an exciting process. Do you have fear around that? Do you look to the future and go, "Oh, this is terrifying"? Do you look at the future with excitement? Like what is it that you see when you look into the future and consider all these options?
It's definitely, I don't think it's fear. I think there's for me, there's always a level of impatience. I am not a patient person. And so there's some of that. Not fear, definitely excitement, but also especially this year over other years in my life, it's been a little bit of an unknown. I've gotten way more involved in my community. Could I parlay that experience into city government? I don't know. I like the idea of keeping an open mind and where things could take me, because you kind of if there's anything I've learned from my career, it's that yes, some strategic choices, but also some lucky timing has really
Absolutely.
kind of helped me course correct and get me to where I want to be. And I when I talk about the universe kind of allowing me the room to do that, I think that I can't imagine that that's over. I'm sure that's going to happen a time or two again for me along the way. So
I'm so excited for you just to see where all of this goes, right? Like you never quite know where you're going to land. It's sometimes wildly unexpected like a bowling company, and yet you can have the impact, you can make the difference. And it's been so cool to watch your growth. But more than anything, I'm excited to see your growth in the future too. Like who you're able to impact is not just going to be at your job, it's going to be in the community. And it's so exciting to watch that happen. So thank you for allowing me to be part of your life and to watch that happen. Thank you for sharing your story with everybody else too. It's so meaningful.
Oh, no, it's honestly like my pleasure. I was so honored when you asked me to be a part of this. I was so excited about it. So I feel like working together with you over the last year has really been, it's been so much more than just a series of aha moments, right? Like I feel like I've gained a new friend, a new colleague out of this in a lot of ways. And I think it's rare to find people that you feel like genuinely understand you. And I feel that with you. So I appreciate all of your guidance and all of the, ongoing support that you've offered
Thank
me,
you.
really.
I love that. All right, well, I'm gonna ask you one final question. We'll see how short you can do this. I'll say like two sentences. In two sentences, tell me like what would you say to very young Megan, not knowing what her career is going to be? What's a piece of advice that you would give young you?
Like pre-career.
Yeah, like yeah, even pre-career. What would you give advice for yourself to go, it's okay, kid, you're gonna make it.
I think it'd be continue to follow your intuition and don't worry about comparing yourself to other people.
Beautifully put. Beautifully put. All right, everybody. Thank you. Thank Megan with me for joining. Megan, can people find you and connect with you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. Beautiful. Well, and let's put this out there in case you're not looking at the screen right now. Megan with no H, Winterstein with three E's. You have to place them yourself.
Perfect. I love that.
Awesome. Well, Megan, thank you so much for being here. Everybody else, we will see you next time on the boardroom. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thanks for spending time with me in the boardroom. If today's conversation sparks something for you and you want clarity on what comes next, visit theboardroom.net to book a reset session or to learn about upcoming leadership retreats. Your next move does not have to wait. I'll see you next episode.